Thank you so much for joining us today. We have the pleasure of being with Scott LaLiberte. Scott is a part of the New Hampshire Learning Initiative as the Director of Innovative Projects. He has over 30 years of experience in K-12 education as a high school English teacher, elementary school administrator, district curriculum coordinator, and a systems leader. He is the former superintendent in Londonderry, New Hampshire, where he served for 8 years. He has worked extensively on a number of different innovative initiatives, including capacity to lead, interdisciplinary curriculum development, competency-based learning, and leadership development. Today, he is joining us because he is writing a book, and we are so excited to get the ins and outs of what that's going to be about. So, Scott, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you, Dr. B. It's great to be here.
Yeah, this is exciting. So you're writing a book, and what is the purpose of the book, and how did it come about? What is your story with it?
The book is called Building the Capacity to Lead. That's the working title. We're still about 6 months away from it coming out, so that it could still change, but that does give you a little bit of a flavor of what it's about. In essence, what I'm trying to do in the book is take a look at the process that we currently use for developing and supporting school leaders.
Yeah.
And trying to propose some different approaches and different thought processes that might make that a little more substantive.
Such a needed area right now. So
yeah.
Such a needed area all the time, but especially the past few years where we're struggling to keep leaders in those positions.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, that was part of how I arrived at this. This really is sort of the confluence of two different influences in my own life and my own experience. One was June of 2022 was when I stepped out and took early retirement from Londonderry after 32 years. I'd kind of hit the wall a little bit from, a professional, physical, mental, and emotional standpoint, and felt like I really wasn't matching up to what I expected of myself in the leadership role. So it was sort of that piece. And when I got out and had the opportunity to go work with the New Hampshire Learning Initiative, one of the things that I did was I started to research the whole process of burnout and the whole process of mental and emotional well-being for leaders. I didn't start to write a book. What I did was I tried to understand my own process. I tried to understand what I had been through.
Those are the best books.
Yeah, I hope so. But that was sort of what lit the fire for me and kind of gave me a new direction. Was the more that I dug into this and the more I started to understand what I had been through, the more I thought, boy, other people should know about this.
Yeah,
I wish I had known more about it.
Yeah, so many people are experiencing it.
Yeah.
What do you feel like are the top areas as far as what people are struggling with in administration?
What I've come upon in the book, actually, I'll back up a step. What brought about the organizational structure of the book was an experience that I had many, many years ago. Back in the late 80s, I played football at the University of New Hampshire. Mm-hmm. And I was a part of a pilot program back then for what was then called the Peak Performance Training Program, which was a very, in the late 80s, was a very unique, very novel approach. What they encouraged us to do is to broaden our scope of the variables that we looked at to train and prepare to play competitive sports.
Yeah.
So it was the first time really you saw, and now it's commonplace, but at that point we started to look at things like recovery and de-escalation. We started to look at visualization and that sort of thing. And so it broadened out the scope of what we would have normally considered as a part of a training program for sports. So to flash forward now, as I collected a lot of this information on the different things, different variables that impacted health and well-being for people in leadership roles, I kind of called back to that and thought that's the same type of mindset that we should be applying to leadership development.
Absolutely is. Yeah. The recovery is huge, and people, we need to have, strategies and techniques around recovery. And so many people don't. They just say, oh, it's recovery, so I'm not going to do anything. And they don't realize that recovery takes almost as much work as performance and everything.
And it has such a huge impact
Huge.
on how we perform day to day in our jobs and how effectively we can remain in them over the course of months and years. I think we mean well. I used to, I sort of joked about this with some of the groups I've worked with around with NHLI. I can remember walking around visiting schools as a superintendent, and I'd stick my head in classrooms and say hello. And I still remember one teacher in particular who came up to me and she put her hand on my shoulder and she said, "Scott, you look horrible. Are you okay? You got to take care of yourself. You really." And in my head, I thought, okay, she just told me I looked horrible, but I think she was right. First of all, and
Yeah.
second of
Well
all,
meaning.
it was a moment where she was saying, "Hey, look, I really care about you, and I'm worried."
Mhm.
And it was nice that staff thought about that and that they
Yeah.
came at it that way. But I have to say, it didn't. It was a nice feeling, but it didn't change my behavior.
No.
I didn't leave there that day thinking, "Wow, I have staff members who actually are concerned for my well-being." It was nice that they were concerned about my well-being, but it didn't impact my behavior, and it didn't impact the way I approached my work. I just thought, "Oh, isn't that nice?"
Yeah.
I think that's true of a lot. There are a lot of
True.
initiatives.
I think more we think about how do we hide those things than if
Yeah,
we don't look our best or whatever, how can we convince
right.
people that we are our best?
Yeah,
Because we have to be on all the time. That is our role. And I think that we need to support people to be able to be on because it's impossible to do it all the time.
yeah. When you're in that leadership role, you feel like you have to project calm and strength and confidence at all times, and
Moment
yet
of
we're
every
human
day.
beings,
Yeah.
right? We're human beings. What I've done with the book is I've divided it into, physical, physiological variables, mental, cognitive variables, emotional variables, and then we look at motivation. We take kind of a deep dive into motivation and try to guide people to structure a plan for their own professional development in
Great.
leadership roles around those different variables. And one of the things that really spoke to me in that regard was we really feel. I'll own it. I won't say I'm not going to hide behind the we. I felt like I couldn't show outwardly that I was hurting and that I wasn't well, and that those because I felt like it was my job to set a tone for the district and for the organization that I worked in. And I think to a degree that's true, but I also think that was a mistake. It
Yeah.
was a lost opportunity to be able to send a message to our staff that it's not enough just to give
Right.
lip service to wellness
It isn't, and I think it's such a hard concept because we all feel that way.
yeah,
I can remember a student saying to me at one point, I had said something about something I had done, and they said, "Yeah, but Dr. B, nobody can live up to you. You have a level that we can't get to." And I was like,
yeah,
"That is so sad. I need to change the way I'm
right,
interacting and share more about the struggles that I go through because if they think that success only is for people who aren't part of that struggle, that they are not impacted by the struggle, that's not
right,
fair to everybody
right.
else. Like they need to know that other people are going through it, that they're human too, and that
Yeah,
they can help support on both ways.
absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely. There is a lot of, if you really think about it in a circular way, there's a lot of strength to being able to step out and say, "I'm not okay right now.
Yep.
I got to take care of this." And that's part of the approach that we're taking with the book is this whole idea of capacity as opposed to ability.
Yeah.
Capacity, what I bring to my work and what I bring to my role each day is a much more pertinent variable, really, than what I learned at the last educational law conference.
Absolutely. Because
Yeah,
it's changed so much in the past. I don't think I've seen the world of education change as much in the 20 years I've been a part of it. I
yeah.
don't think I've seen it change as much as it has, and I just made myself look really young at probably 30 years.
You are compared to me.
It's changed. The last 3
Yeah,
years have been significantly different from what we've ever seen. So
right,
significantly
right.
different. So does the book contain strategies and resources and things like that that people will be able to access? Okay.
It does. It does. What we're looking for as an outcome from the book, it's not a prescriptive, do this, how to program and that sort of thing.
It can't
Uh,
be, unfortunately.
it's too big. It
Yeah.
would be too big. And as my editor is always reminding me, remember, leaders don't have a lot of time to read books, so you want to keep this a little shorter.
Or, yeah.
I do have the ability to make a novel out of a short story, but I'm trying to overcome that in the writing process here for the book. But the idea is, first of all, to do a little bit of background information for people. We dive into things like sympathetic and parasympathetic response, vagal tone, those kind of the physiology
Oh,
of,
yeah.
of the
Totally
stress
talking my
response.
language.
Well, I mean, I never really, I was an English teacher. I never really dove that deep once I passed biology. And I think if I had understood more about it, it may have been more compelling to me to take action and to take some steps. So that's what we're trying to do. Is we're trying to say to people that the job itself is difficult. There's nothing we can do to make this work easier for you. If you're going to come at it that way, you're setting yourself up for frustration. What we can do is think differently about the way in which we prepare you to do the work. And that's where the parallel to competitive athletics comes in. You're training for an event. You're physically, mentally, and emotionally preparing yourself for an event. That event happens to be leading a school or a district.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily have to, you always you're always a little careful with drawing athletic parallels within academia, but this one fits, right? We know this is hard work. So
Well, and
what can we
especially
do?
nowadays, it fits. I mean, at the last staff training we had, I actually had an Olympian present to my staff because I was like, we are performance based. We're working directly with students who are disruptive, who are physically disruptive. It's performance in every thought of it, like mentally, emotionally, physically. I mean, every part of it is we have to be on peak performance at that time when we're doing that. So I think now more than ever, those things are, they're overlapping for sure. Yeah.
They are. And hopefully what people will take from the book is that personalized mindset of, like I said, if I tried to do this as a book of just follow these 8 steps and you'll be fine, hopefully no one would read it.
That'd be great if it was just
if it were that easy, right?
No, just follow these steps and everything in your school district.
Everything will be fine. Right. What we want is for people to look objectively. That's one of the things that I've done is I've sort of incorporated some of the work that we do at NHLI around competency-based learning. Part of the proposal that I'm making to this is that we approach this with not necessarily a competency-based system, but a competency-based mindset, right? And the example that I use is if we're talking about the importance of cardiovascular fitness for people in leadership positions, am I suggesting that perhaps someone might have an exercise program as a part of their PD plan? I actually am.
Yeah.
I am suggesting that. However, if you are a person who happens to run marathons in road races on a regular basis, you've demonstrated that competency. Yeah. So maybe that's not where your effort goes.
Right. So what
you need to look at is something like sleep. That's probably half of the mental cognitive piece. And I know you've done a lot of work in that area too.
Yeah, tons and tons.
Maybe that's a more appropriate focus for a person like that they might put their time into that area as a part of maintaining their capacity.
Yeah. It's so many things that go into it between nutrition and hydration. I did a training this morning on nutrition and I started it with water. And I was like, I could talk about water for days, because and more than 2/3 of children who are diagnosed with ADHD are dehydrated.
Yeah.
Go to school every day dehydrated. So if we just have those kids be hydrated and drinking milk aminos won't hydrate your body. Drinking juice won't hydrate your body or any of those other things. So, if we could just hydrate those kids, but adults are dealing with the same things. I mean, they're drinking, coffees and teas, and great. I love those things too. But, making sure that we're giving our bodies what we need so that they can fuel us to do what we need to do, for sure. So
I think a lot of people will incorporate things like that, maybe, on as a part of a diet or a fitness program. They're not necessarily thinking of it as an important element of their performance within their job.
Yep.
And I know that I joke about it, but that's why I have this, and that's why it's always around there. So there you go. It's always nearby. Yeah, I was going to say.
Blue,
I think they're the same. I think they're the same one. Yeah.
Yep.
But that's why
the administrator's cup.
That's what it is. That's what it is. Hopefully that's one of the things that comes about as a result, or for people who do choose to read the book, is just a reconsideration of that. It seems almost overly simple. Are you drinking enough water? Yeah, okay, I try.
But most people, you think about it, they don't think about it until something causes them to question it, and then they're like, "Oh, maybe I'm." You know what? You're right. I've gotten away from that and that sort of thing. So just bringing that back into awareness is sometimes extremely helpful.
Yeah.
When do you hope to have your book finished, Scott? What are the deadlines you've given yourself?
The deadline. Yeah. I actually have I have 4 days to have my first draft in this coming Friday. It's got to be in. I know this will come out a little later, but so I'm at the door right now of the first draft, in basically 3 different steps in the editorial process. The first draft, they kind of look at the big picture and give you some feedback and rework. The second editorial is peer review. I'm working with Solution Tree, and Solution Tree, of course, does a lot of peer reviewed work. So they'll send it out for peer review. And then the third draft, once that comes back and I make a second round of edits, the final round will be when I go through pretty much sentence by sentence with my editor and make sure, hopefully my English teaching background doesn't, hopefully it works in my favor a little bit, but that is going to be a big part of it. And then after that, you go into production and will start working with the graphic artists and the layout people. And I'm kind of excited about that. It'll be kind of fun.
Yeah, that part of it's fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's we're hoping to have it out around October or November of this year, fall. That's the goal. Solution Tree has been fantastic. I know I've been to a number of their different events and done some work with them in the past. So it was when I sent it in, when I submitted it to them, it was kind of it was almost sort of like, well, I got to try. I don't. They probably won't accept it. I'll probably go with a smaller publisher, but I lucked out. I had a good approach and a good topic, and so I'm really excited to work with them because I know they do a lot of work. They've already talked with me. They'd like me to do a PD series to support it and that sort of thing. So a lot of cool stuff ahead.
How will people be able to access it?
The book will be available through Solution Tree on their website. I'm not sure how the distribution process will be. Probably bookstores and things like
link
that.
Below, just so everyone can see how to access Solution Tree. So you can looking like October or fall rather of 2024 to look for that.
24, yeah. Hopefully it all comes together. And like I said, for me, it's been sort of a rejuvenating to be able to do this kind of work. It's become sort of we talk about motivation and volition and kind of, this has been very, very renewing for me. The idea that we might be able to really make a difference in the lives of some of our school leaders who right now are feeling pretty lonely and feeling pretty beat up. And that's my new goal is to help and support some of those people. So
awesome.
We're hoping.
That's great. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Scott, for joining us today and being willing to share. That was great. Scott, if people want to access you, how can they reach you?
Probably best to reach me through my New Hampshire Learning Initiative email. Certainly feel free. It's
for that below.
You can put that down below too. Yeah, it's better than me spelling it out. I have a long name, but we can put that down there as well. But yeah, glad to help people out if anyone's looking for some direction or some assistance in their own world like that as well. So be glad to share that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.